Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jumper, and today I'll be reviewing the original Final Fantasy VII, which was released back in 1997. Now, this is probably one of, if not the most well-known Final Fantasy game, in the sense that if you don't know anything about Final Fantasy VII, you might have heard about some of the characters, like Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Sephiroth, and yeah, and the main plot is that you are this ex-soldier turned mercenary called Cloud, and he's basically helping at the start of the game. He's basically helping out this eco-terrorist group called Avalanche, and then from the first mission, it's kind of like snowballs its way into fighting Sephiroth, who's like this soldier gone crazy, and you basically go around the world finding new allies, going to different locations, and basically trying to find where Sephiroth is and beating him. And yeah, I would say this is, as I said before, the most well-known, or one of, if not the most well-known Final Fantasy game, because of some of the stuff that happens in it, as well as the characters are quite well-known, even if you haven't played a Final Fantasy VII game, or a Final Fantasy game in general. And yeah, because you got Cloud, who's basically personality. No. His personality is just edgy with spikes for hair. That's basically him. Then you've got Sephiroth, who's basically just a really well-known boss and well-known character. About that, I would say, besides Cloud, and he's spoilers for this part. So if you want to skip ahead a bit, or if you want to play the original, be my guest. But Sephiroth is well known for killing off Aerith. Towards the end-ish part of the game, I would say like 2/3 or so of the game, or something around that part. And then you've also got Aerith, or Aeris, depending on who you ask. Because in the original game, there was, I believe, a translation error or something, and Aerith was called Aeris, and you've got the whole Mandela effect of, oh, she's Aerith, or is she Aeris? So, yeah, and I would say, for the game, it graphically looks dated. It looks dated for its time, because it was released back in 1997, and 3D games were starting to appear, because you had games around the late 1990s. You had games like Mario 64 and the Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, which were released around the time that Final Fantasy VII was released. And as I said before, it looks dated. Even some of the cutscenes look dated for their time, and because when you play the game, you're playing this blocky characters, and you just walk about, that sort of stuff. But when it comes to the cutscenes, they look okay, they look good, but if you compare them to either Remake or Rebirth, they look bad in comparison. And I think, yeah, because technology was limited at the time, and you couldn't really do the stuff that the Final Fantasy VII Remake games could do. Yeah, it does. It looks bad, but overall, I think the game looks cool. I think a lot in terms of the sense of that. And I think it looks cool in terms of looks in terms of how some of the games, or how it's done. And I'm going to show you that with the gameplay. So when it comes to the overworld of Final Fantasy VII, it's kind of like how older Pokemon games or other games like Final Fantasy do it, in the sense that you've got this big, huge open world to explore, and you will find some places that you can't access to yet, so you have to try and get to a particular part in the game to progress. But if you press, depending on which button you press to make some of the game goes faster, there are things that you can help progress the game. So, for example, there's if you press R3 or L3, you can expand the you can make the world go faster. If you press the opposite one, you can have like, I believe, unlimited health and limits. And if you press both L3 and R3 at the same time, you won't get any encounters, which I think is a good way of, well, a good thing if you want to like try and get from place to place. So for example, if you're trying to get from Wutai to, let's say, another completely another place on the other side of the map, then the no encounters thing would be a very good idea to help. So yeah, your limits. Each limit is it's very different. I think, for example, Cloud, he has different depending on which sword you have or how many times you use a particular limit. You can change the limit on his thing. But with Tifa, she will start out with one roulette wheel, and the more you get, the longer the limit break will be, and you'll get more money, more different items and stuff like that. And you can find different parts of the world, which I think is quite nice, and within each area of the game, you can find different locations. And within each of the different areas that you can explore, you can find various shops, which I think is quite useful because they help you with progression stuff. So you've got like things like weapons, materia, and stuff like that. And each weapon does have their own stats, and you can see each different one differently in terms of when you're doing a battle. So for example, and when you first start the game, you'll get Cloud's Buster Sword, but then later on, you might get a different sword for Cloud, and that will be different, and you'll see the different sprite stuff you'll get for the weapons. So yeah, so that's been it for the gameplay. Now it's time to go back to the review. Materials, and also when it comes to the summons, it works differently than in the first than the remakes, because in the remakes you have to wait a while. I think if you're fighting like the larger enemies, you have to the summon bar will appear, and then you can summon them. But in the original, in this game, if I can get into a random encounter quickly, then I can show you, because they do work the same in that you can summon them, but you don't have to wait a long time if you want to summon your particular summon. And they will do and they do different things, like in the remakes you can choose different moves for them, but in the original they can only do one move at a time. So yeah, I think that's quite cool. So that's been it for the gameplay. Now time to go back to the review. So with Final Fantasy VII, I do enjoy the game. I think there's a lot of stuff that I do enjoy. Like, I do like how, like with a lot of other RPGs, including the remakes, both the first remake and Rebirth, I do like how you can swap out your party members every once in a while, and just mix and match who you want to be. So, for example, currently my team, I have in terms of who gets to fight, it's Cloud, Tifa, and the vampire guy, Vincent. Yeah, the Vincent. And yeah, I think it's a good way of like seeing which characters you like best. And yeah, and I do like the different areas you get to go to. Like, and I think with both Remake and Rebirth, they do those locations that you get to experience again a lot better, especially with places like the Golden Saucer, because with the Golden Saucer in the original, it's just some areas you go to and they look okay, but with Rebirth, the Golden Saucer section looks 100 times more better, and I feel like how in Rebirth you can just go and see where you can easily get to. But with the original, I do enjoy how it's done and how like everything is done, and in terms of how you can try and get to every location and stuff like that. But when it comes to some elements, especially with the first part or like the first few hours, it does feel a bit rushed, and I think it's because I played Remake first, way before I played the original. And when comparing it to Remake, it's like, oh, it's fun. I do enjoy some of the things, but after playing the Remake, I was just like, oh man, these parts are going way too fast. And yeah, and I think there's a bit of a downside ish for me personally, because you get to talk with some of the members of Avalanche, like Wedge, Jesse, and the guy who looks like Charlie Sheen. No, Biggs. Yeah, Wedge, Biggs, and Jesse, and you do get to interact with them a couple of times in the original, but after playing Remake, they get a lot of backstory or a lot of extra content in Remake. But for the original, it's just, oh, they're just on screen for 5 minutes and then they're gone. But in Remake, they get like a good, I would say, 20 minutes, 20 to 25 minutes added on, and you get to interact with them more. And I think Remake does those characters a whole lot better. And yeah, I think overall, I do like the different locations you go to, and I do like the sort of like, sort of kind of like sort of like background stuff, because like they kind of almost look like map paintings, kind of like if you watched any of the original Star Wars films, where they have their own map paintings for certain sections of those films. And yeah, that work kind of looks like to me when you look at stuff like the Wutai area where we go with Yuffie. And yeah, it just feels really, I think those like smaller moments are really cool, and I do like it. The combat, it's fine. It's okay, and I think it's very RPG like, because you've got like, these different characters all with all their own unique moves, and yeah. But I feel like I know I'm bringing this back to the remakes again, both the first and Rebirth one. The combat in those games I feel like are a bit sharper and a bit more better, whereas with the original, a lot of the combat is just, it feels a bit slow in some parts. Like you'll wait for an attack, and then you wait. You press the button to do an attack, and you'll wait like 5 to 10 seconds until a particular character or particular enemy does their attack. And yeah, I think there are some ups, some downs for the original Final Fantasy VII, and yeah, I think overall the game is just a blast. I think it's just a really fun game to go through and just experience how the original plays out. Especially if you've played through both Remake and Rebirth, in terms of, because through those games they follow the same sort of story but have different elements changed a bit ish. And yeah, and it's a good, I think if you've played both Remake and Rebirth, I think it's a good idea to play through the original. And so yeah. So that's been my review for the original Final Fantasy VII. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.